Remember, students, here with another fantastic product.
Do you have an Indian neighbor that's not quite fitting in as a British subject? Well, have we got a solution for you.
Residential schools!
But what's a residential school?
A residential school is a school where the Indian is taken to live at, and through very strict enforcement, is modeled into a perfect British citizen.
But how did this all start?
Well, in 1620, boarding schools were established for Indian youth by the Récollets, a French order in New France.
But what if they didn't want to?
Well, in 1850, residential schools became mandatory for all Indians between the ages of 6 and 15. Under this, many were taken forcibly away from their homes, and if their parents didn't agree, they were threatened with jail time.
Cool, think about it. I may have a neighbor who may require this service. But how is this all legal?
Well, the Gradual Civilization Act, which was passed by Parliament in 1857, required all males over the age of 21 to know how to speak fluent English or French, even to read and write.
And under this, all Indian males were entitled to at least no more than 50 acres of land that was given to their tribe. But by doing this, they gave up their rights as Indians.
Wow, I never knew that. But I thought residential schools have been banned and closed in Canada.
Well, compulsory attendance did end in 1948, but we're trying to bring it back in style, like berets.
Oh, and don't forget, in 1975, a provincial task force of the educational needs of Native people heard recommendations from other Native people to increase the language and cultural programs and improve funding for the Native education.
And don't forget that in 1996, well, the last residential school closed. It was Gordon Residential School.
Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention, on June 11th, 2008, Stephen Harper stood in front of the House of Commons to say sorry for the former Prime Minister's doings in creating the residential schools. In the first formal apology from a Canadian Prime Minister in history over the formal finance program. But that's all behind us now.
I've heard it from you guys, but what do others say? And where can I find convenient locations for my neighbor?
Good question. There were over 93 residential schools in Canada. Here's a map of all of their locations.
But what about the testimonials?
Well, here's a quote from Everett Soup.
It took me a long time to overcome this bitterness. As a matter of fact, today I'm not so angry at white people anymore. I think I was extremely bitter when I first left. I hated all white people, but now I realize that it was only a small portion. And then even then, I think I can forgive them because I think it's the government.
And Lauren Pratt said, in relation to the last residential school closing, it was the happiest day of my life.
Well, and the day that the Prime Minister decided to apologize to everybody for what the formal Prime Minister had done. Stéphane Dion, in a quote, said that today's apology is about the past that should have been completely different.
This seems pretty sketchy. I'm out of here.
Yeah, well, maybe residential schools aren't such a good thing. I'm leaving.
No!